Hello, my name is Sarmad, and today I will be presenting our work, Photorealistic Continuous Image Super Resolution with Implicit Neural Networks and Generative Adversarial Networks. This is joint work with my supervisors, Leonardo Ruspini from Petrichor and Frank Linseth from NTNU. Our visual world is continuous. However, when a machine tries to process a scene, it will need to first store and represent the images as 2D arrays of pixels. The trade-off between complexity and precision is controlled by the resolution. While the pixel-based representation has been successfully applied in various computer vision tasks, the resolution is also constrained due to this representation. For example, any dataset is often represented by images with different resolutions. If we want to train a convolutional neural network, we will usually need to resize the images to the same size. This may sacrifice fidelity. Therefore, instead of representing an image with a fixed resolution, it was proposed recently to study a continuous representation for images. This proposal was inspired by recent progress in 3D reconstruction with implicit neural representations. According to this proposal, we can use an image function. This image function takes an image coordinate and 2D deep features around the coordinate as inputs and predicts the RGB value at a given coordinate as an output. By modeling an image as a function defined in a continuous domain, we can restore and generate image in arbitrary resolution if needed, since any input coordinate can be fed to at the input of this function. I will now provide a brief history of implicit neural representations and related works that led up to our work. We start with occupancy networks, a new representation for learning-based 3D reconstruction methods. Occupancy network implicitly represents the 3D surface as the continuous decision boundary of a deep neural network classifier. In contrast to existing approaches, their representation encodes a description of the 3D output at infinite resolution without excessive memory footprint. Representing shapes as occupancies is one option. One can do other underlying continuous functions such as sign distance fields as well. Next, we talk about NERF. NERF uses a neural network instead of a voxel grid to encode the volumetric representation of a scene. Their algorithm represents a scene using a fully connected deep network, whose input is a single continuous 5D coordinate, that is the spatial location and the viewing direction, and whose output is the volume density and view-dependent emitted radiance at that spatial location. They synthesize views by querying 5D coordinates along the camera rays and use classic volume rendering techniques to project the output colors and densities into an image. Since volume rendering is naturally differentiable, the only input required to optimize their representation is a set of images with known camera poses. Basic NERF is a bit blurry, but in another work, Tanchik et al. Show that passing the input points, that is the coordinates, through a simple Fourier feature mapping enables a multi-layer perceptron to learn high-frequency functions in low-dimensional problem domains. These results shed light on the recent advances in vision and graphics that achieve the state of the art. by using MLPs to represent complex 3D objects and scenes. Using the tools from the neural tangent kernel literature, they showed that a standard MLP fails to learn high frequency in theory and in practice. Therefore, they use a Fourier feature mapping to overcome this spectral bias to transform the effective NTK into a stationary kernel with a tunable bandwidth. They also suggest an approach for selecting problem-specific Fourier features that significantly improve the performance of MLPs for low-dimensional regression tasks relevant to the vision and graphics. Similarly, Sitzman et al. Noticed that MLP with ReLU layer-based network architectures for such implicit neural representations are incapable of modeling signals with fine details and fail to represent a signal's spatial and temporal derivatives, even though these high frequencies are essential to many physical signals defined implicitly. Therefore, they propose to leverage periodic activation functions for implicit neural representations. And they demonstrate that these networks, which they call sirens, are ideally suited for representing complex natural signals and their derivatives. Both Fourier feature mapping and siren map low-dimensional input coordinates to the desired output. Therefore, the next question was if a similar mapping would be needed to learn continuous representation of a large data set of images for tasks such as super resolution. However, Chen et al. Came up with a slightly different direction with their work, local implicit image function. As they did not require any Fourier feature mapping or sinusoidal activation functions. Instead, they used MLPs with ReLU activations. In this work, they also seek to learn a continuous representation of images. LIF takes an image coordinate and the 2D deep features around the coordinate as inputs and predicts the RGB value at a given coordinate as an output. Since the coordinates are continuous, LIF can be presented in arbitrary resolution. They train an encoder with LIF representation via self-supervised super resolution task to generate the continuous representation for images. LIF can perform something which we call out-of-scale super resolution. Out-of-scale means that the network was only trained in the resolution range of 1x to 4x. However, the output resolution is set at 12x in this example. This is a very interesting property, but LIF suffers from blurry outputs for out-of-scale super resolution due to the use of L1, that is the pixel-wise loss function. Now we show an overview of our method. The input image is passed through a convolutional encoder to obtain a latent vector. This latent vector and the image coordinate XHR are used to obtain the color values of the pixel at the input coordinate using the LIF block. Note that the implicit neural network consists of a few layers of multi-layer perceptron that are present inside the LIF block. We need an output image patch to train implicit neural network using adversarial and perceptual loss. The previous method uses a random set of coordinates from image. This sampling method works well when the objective is to minimize the pixel-wise loss, for example, L1. However, looking at only pixels means that the contextual information is lost. Therefore, we propose a random patch-based sampling procedure instead of a random point-based sampling method to retain contextual information. We first train LIF with random patches instead of random points with only a pixel-wise loss. We notice that This random patch-based sampling method performs similar to a random coordinate-based sampling method in terms of performance. We use the L1 laws following the previous work, which trains only with this objective, to smooth images which blur the textural information for out-of-scale super resolution. The use of a patch-based sampling procedure permits the use of adversarial loss that is based on the generative adversarial networks. We found that instead of using a standard GAN formulation, using a relativistic GAN formulation works better. This formulation is different from the standard discriminator, which estimates the probability that an input image is real. Instead, the discriminator predicts the probability that a real image is more realistic than a fake one. We also use perceptual loss, that is the distance between the features of a pre-trained VGG network between the predicted image and the ground truth. Now for some results. The qualitative results on div2k validation set for 6x out-of-scale resolution are shown in this figure. The proposed method produces realistic images containing textures due to the adversarial and perceptual nature of the objective as compared to LIF. LIF is mostly blurry for out-of-scale super resolution because it smooths out the textual information. At the same time, our method maintains all the desired properties of an implicit neural network. That is, a single model can perform super resolution at higher scales even if the model is not trained for it. Here are some more results on the div2k validation set with 12x upsampling. It can be seen here again that our model maintains the edge over the baseline in terms of the perceptual quality. Here are some more results on the test set that show that our method provides realistic looking outputs compared to LIF. This table shows the quantitative comparison of our method with LIF. The perceptual similarity metric, LPIPS, is a distance metric. Therefore, the lower the value, the better, whereas the higher the peak signal to noise ratio, PSNR for short, it's better. Blau et al. Have previously shown that there is a trade-off between distortion and perception, and this can be observed for our model as well. The proposed model has lower PSNR values than local implicit image function, as it is trained on the adversarial and perceptual loss. However, it consistently outperforms better than LIF in terms of LPIPS metric. Lower LPIPS means that we can expect aesthetically pleasing results from our model. We further compare the performance of our method with state-of-the-art convolutional neural network-based methods, including SRGAN, ESRGAN, and SPSR, and SFT-GAN. We notice that our method outperforms all in terms of LPIPS while maintaining comparable PSNR, as shown in the table. Generally, there is a large gap between SPSR and our method based on the LPIP metric. However, the difference is small in the test set Urban 100. This behavior is expected as the gradient guidance-based structure prior used in their model encourage the retrieval of lines and geometries that are commonly found in this data set. And it is also to be noted that all of these are CNN-based methods, therefore they do not have the properties of implicit neural networks. Finally, we have some conclusion and future work. In this work, we have improved the perceptual quality of implicit neural network-based single image super resolution. There is an ongoing research on the choice of implicit neural network architecture. This work and other works often rely on fully connected layers, but there are also methods that work on hypernetwork-based architectures, which would be interesting to check out. However, I end this talk with a question that can we train the out of scale part in a way to get some kind of infinite zoom or pattern generating capabilities? Because after a certain time, even if you do zoom in, you will not see some meaningful patterns. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. And for details, please refer to our paper, and code will also be released soon.